The Blue Nile were a pop band from Glasgow in Scotland. They existed from 1981 to 2004, and they released 4 albums, but they also have a long list of collaborations that they had with other acts. Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of A Walk Across the Rooftops by the Blue Nile, which was released in 1984 and was their first album. And it's my first encounter with them, my first time knowingly listening to them, and certainly my first time listening to this album. So there's various labels have been given to this, um, including sophisti-pop. I'm not sure about that label. I would say, well, I certainly start from the point of view of 80s pop rock, particularly British pop rock, but on the slightly strange end. So, similar to bands like The Teardrop Explodes, Talk Talk, Japan, but then pushing that strangeness just a few more steps. So it takes the elements that make those bands slightly out of the ordinary and makes them more slightly out of the ordinary. But it's somewhat sparse at times with unusual sounds and textures going on. Apparently, one of the reasons that the sound that they have came about was because they were insecure about their instrumental playing, and so felt they needed to approach it in a way where they used simple stuff but in unusual ways, which is, I think that that's worked because I think that this emphasis on textures rather than on virtuosity has paid off because they've got some good textures and they've made some really good creative decisions in this. You'll get the idea that I enjoyed this album. There's another interesting thing about the album is that the production quality is unusually excellent for 1984. It is unusual production quality, particularly though. I really enjoyed the bass end of this, which is very deep and very nice. So I put the nature of the production of this somewhat down to the fact that this album was released by Lynn Records, who were an offshoot from a company, Lynn Audio, who made high-end, hi-fi and audio equipment, and this was their foray into into being a record label. And so it has been said that this album was particularly meant as a showcase for Lynn and their audio stuff. Along with comments from the band, I would disagree that that is entirely what it is about. But I think that there is an element of that here, which is an added strong element, I would say. The singing has got quite a strident voice. It's a type of voice that was quite popular in the UK in the early mid 80s. I find it curious how voice type seemed to go in fashions, and this was definitely one that was in fashion at the time. In terms of comparisons, I would say that it reminds me of, I mean, I mentioned these other bands, but it reminds me at times of Peter Gabriel. Not quite the same. It reminds me of Talking Heads. Again, not quite the same. Also, at times there's elements of contemporary classical, particularly the minimalists. So I did a review of a Philip Glass album not that long ago, and there were elements in here that made me think, oh, that sounds quite Philip Glass going on there, particularly kind of repeated, fast arpeggiated stuff, or something like Steve Reich, the minimalists from contemporary classical. The songs here, they're so interesting textures. They're not hits. They're not hugely immediately recognizable or memorable. Tinseltown in the Rain, I believe, did fairly okay as a single release. The lyrics didn't really land with me, by which I mean I didn't really pay a lot of attention or find out what they were about. I did get the impression that maybe somewhat unusual at times, but that's as far as that went. But I enjoyed the sound, and it was refreshing. So I enjoyed it. It has a kind of weird feel to it. It's a very of its time weird feel, but that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it wherever we are, 18, 19, 30 odd years later, uh, 40. something, maybe. Yeah, anyway, whatever. Um, so, yeah, I enjoyed it. And but I'd love to know what you think of this. As always, having given you my opinion, I'd love to get you to share back with your opinion in a kind of share and share alike kind of feel. And the way to do that is to leave me a comment, please, if you would. And that's it from me for now.